I'm going to turn the mic over to Rosemary Harris Lytle. She has been in our community for a long time. She's been a journalist. She's worked for the ACLU. She is currently with NAACP Regional Director. Is that correct? And we're not even sure exactly what her story will be, but we know that it will be fascinating, exciting, and thank you so much. Give her a big round of applause.
Well, wow, it is so wonderful to be in Colorado. I'm going to tell you, I have been gone from Colorado for almost 3 weeks. I just got back today.
Oh my God. Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. I would do almost anything for Ariel Hart and Carolyn Cathy. I think we should applaud that. I would do anything for Sharon Friedman because she taught me the fine art of storytelling, which is why I have no notes. Okay, in honor of the great one, the great hair, and the great one. So, yes, I've been gone from Colorado. I've been in Washington, D.C., and its environs for the last almost 3 weeks. Yesterday, I was at the March on Washington for Jobs and Freedom. Yes, we marched, and I know that we return to our communities to make a difference. So that's the real beauty of it, but there was nothing like seeing all those amazing young people, all those amazing old people, and I'm going to call them old because if you were there 50 years ago, unless you were in a baby carriage, you're not exactly young. So, and they wore their elderhood well. So it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful gathering. No matter what they say, there were 500,000 people there. Yes, they don't know how to count at the Park Service. I wish they knew how to count at the Park Service. But I wish I were regional director too, but I'm not. I'm a volunteer. So I do my work at the NAACP for the love of civil rights and social justice. And I am state conference president for Colorado, Montana, and Wyoming. I'm probably the biggest landmass of any of the NAACP state conferences. And I say that because at the end, I'm going to pitch it to you. I'm going to pitch NAACP membership to you on this eve of Women's Equality Day. So as I was thinking about this and thinking about what I saw on the mall yesterday and thinking about what called me to Washington, D.C. in the first place, and then thinking about my grandmother, I'm going to talk about that, and I'm going to do it in about 15 minutes. It occurred to me yesterday that when I looked at the news clips from the March on Washington in 1963, I only saw 2 women take the mic. Myrlie Evers Williams, who is a shero, the wife of Medgar Evers, took the mic 50 years ago and talked about women in the movement. So they assigned a woman to talk about the women. Also, Marian Anderson, the great contralto, took the mic 50 years ago and sang. So the women talked about the women, and then the women sang. Now, we'd want to hear Marian Anderson sing no matter what. No matter what. And I know that as she sang, she wasn't thinking like I'm thinking today, because she sang, "He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole wide world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands. He's got the whole world in his hands." But she should have said, "She's got the whole world." Sing it with me. In her hands, she's got the whole wide world. In her hand, she's got the whole world. In her hands, she's got the whole world in her hands. So the women were excluded. You saw them standing in the pictures. They were there for dramatic effect, to pretty it up, because they knew we needed strong women, because they knew we are women, and the women in the civil rights movement got things done, got things done, got things done, and then the men took their places in the front with the microphone. And speaker after speaker yesterday talked about how so many people who were a part of King's dream, who were a part of A. Philip Randolph's dream, who were a part of Bayard Rustin's dream. If you don't know who Bayard Rustin is, I don't even mind if you get your cell phone out right now and Google Bayard Rustin. We must know who Bayard Rustin is in this country, a great civil rights activist who had to hide a part of himself as a black man, as a gay black man, had to hide a part of himself in order to be able to contribute to the civil rights movement. Bayard Rustin, our hero in the movement. So despite Bayard's presence, no women got to take the mic. So that's what we talked about. That's what they talked about yesterday, about women taking their places. And it was amazing. And it reminded me of my grandmother. So Ariel asked me to tell a story about someone in my family, a woman in my family. And so I have to talk about Mary Elizabeth Jefferson Banks, my paternal grandmother. We just called her Big Mama. She wasn't very big, but the name absolutely fit. One, she had legs. I get my legs from her. She had powerful legs. She had walking in the movement legs. She had going door to door to campaign for Richard Gordon Hatcher as the first African American mayor of Gary, Indiana legs. She had I will carry you through the struggle legs. I like to think I've got those legs. She always told me that I had her legs. My grandmother, the sweetest woman, who, as I thought about her yesterday as I stood on the mall, and I thought about this movement for women's equality, I thought about how equality for a woman like my Big Mama was different, perhaps, than equality for a different woman, a woman of another socioeconomic class, a woman of another race or ethnicity. For my Big Mama, it was, and for many black women, it was not about, I need my liberation so that I can go to the office, so that I can take my place in the world of work, so that I can get away from these babies, all three of them, you know, so that, I don't mean to make light of those babies, but you know what I'm saying. For black women, it was in many ways about, I'm tired but not weary, but I want to go home. I want to go home from your house where I work to take care of your house and your children and perhaps your mate, and go home and take care of my house and my children or my grandchildren and my mate and myself. And so when my grandmother was in her 50s, I believe, she decided that she was not going back to her job. She had migrated from the South, born in Glen Allen, Mississippi, and no more repressive place could you find other than perhaps Colorado Springs, Colorado. She had been born in that great Magnolia State that had denied her civil rights, and migrated to Indiana with her sons and her husband having, frankly, gone on about his business after he got to the North and got his freedom. I love my grandfather, but he got on about his business. And that left my grandmother and her 5 sons, who all got jobs at U.S. Steel. Now I'm going to tell you, when you had picked cotton in the Mississippi Delta, and that was some terrible work, going to work in a steel mill, which was the same kind of hot, terrible work, but a lot different pay, was a wonderful thing. You and all your brothers, all of your sons are now employed at U.S. Steel. And so on one day, when she was in her 50s, my grandmother said, I'm going home. I'm not going to cook in this house anymore. I'm not going to take care of these bad kids anymore. I'm not going to take care of this lazy woman, no matter what she pays me. And we're talking about economic equality. And we know that women of color, African American women and Latinas, have traditionally earned much less than other women, much less than men of color, certainly much less than white men. We heard someone on the mall say yesterday that white men act like, and it was a white man who said, white men act like they ran all the way around the bases and got to third base. And so when that home run opportunity came, when that hit opportunity came, they just ran into home base. But no, a white man stood there yesterday and said, I was born on third base, so I could get to home plate a lot easier than my brothers and sisters in the movement who are of color. So we know that there was this economic inequity. We know that my grandmother worked hard in Mississippi, and probably it worked her nerves to be working that hard in Indiana. And she decided she was going home. She was not going to cook another fabulous pot roast for those bad kids. She was not going to make another sweet potato pie, and trust me, she could make a sweet potato pie that make you fall down on the ground. Ah! Big Mama, I want that sweet potato pie right now. I'm hungry. I've been on a plane. I'm hungry. She decided that her liberation was going to be going home and going into her community. So she convened her 5 sons, who all now had jobs at U.S. Steel. And she said, this is my plan for how I'm going to make it financially. You are going to give me each month, and you are going to, I carried you for 9, and you are going to, don't forget, I wiped your little snotty nose. It's snotty right now. Come here, let me help you out, honey. And you are going to, and she went down the line. And each of them agreed. Each of them loved her fiercely and decided that she should not have to go back and do that work. And they asked her, though, Mama, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You're just going to sit around? You're going to just, well, take care of these kids? So I want to take care of these grandkids. I just don't want to take care of her grandkids. But what are you going to do? She threw herself into community work like you would not believe. A woman who had realistically not gone past the 4th grade in Mississippi, probably not even the equivalent of that. A woman who formal education had eluded her, but she desired that fiercely for me as her oldest grandchild, as her first granddaughter, as the one, this is a big secret, that she nicknamed Cookie because I was so sweet. That's what she said. I bet Doug Lamborn might not say that, but she said it. All right now, tell the truth. Okay, so she said it. So my grandmother threw herself into the campaign to elect Richard Gordon Hatcher as the first African American mayor of Gary, Indiana. She was only just getting her own franchise. She was only just getting her own voting rights. But she was determined that someone who looked like the people in Gary, Indiana, really a minority at the time. We know that people of color are now the majority and taking over every day. But where the majority then, which was the minority, would have someone who looked like them in that mayor's office. And no finer mayor could have been had. He was a fabulous mayor, and so she walked the streets of Gary, and she knocked on people's doors, and she gave them signs for their windows, and she collected money. She sold sweet potato pies. She asked everybody that she met, don't forget I'm going to ask you to join the NAACP. She asked everybody that she met for a contribution, and she went to Hatcher himself and said, if you don't do right by the people, you're going to have to deal with me. And nobody wanted to have to deal with Mary Elizabeth Jefferson Banks, okay? So Richard Gordon Hatcher got elected, And my grandmother found this new life in community work and threw herself in it in a way that rubbed off on me. And I can only say that I have been blessed to do the things that I've done because I stand on the shoulders. I'm standing on them. Okay, you like to walk? I'm standing on them. I'm standing on the shoulders of Mary Elizabeth Jefferson Banks. I'm standing on the shoulders of my maternal grandmother, Almetha Jones Montgomery. I'm standing on the shoulders of Ella Baker. I'm standing on the shoulders of Fannie Lou Hamer. I'm standing on the shoulders of Rosa Parks. I'm standing on the shoulders of Violet Luizzo. If you don't know who Violet Luizzo is, take out your smartphones and Google her. Liuzzo, who left her home in Michigan, bound and determined to go and register African American voters in the South. As a white woman, unthinkable. As a white woman, what are you doing? As a white woman, why are you in the car with that black man? Because she was in the car with a black man on her very first day in Mississippi, she was killed. I'm standing on her shoulders. You're standing on her shoulders as women activists, and we can't forget it. Now, there's some NAACP members in the House right now. Pat Hansen is in the House. She's an NAACP member. Carolyn Cathy is an NAACP member. I'm about to appoint her to the State Exec Committee if she'll let me. Ariel Hart is an NAACP member. You know that you have to be an NAACP member, Ms. Sharon Freeman. The NAACP was founded by Jewish philanthropists who thought it not robbery to join with women of color in the movement. And I like to tell people that about the NAACP because they think it's named the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People because I want it to be called a colored person. No. It is because freedom fighters come in all colors and we can all work for freedom in this movement. So for all of those who didn't get a chance to stand on the mall 50 years ago, for all of the women that I just named, for my maternal grandmother and for my paternal grandmother, my heart, today I say we are women, we are women, we are women. We must come together. We must come together. We must come together. Please consider joining the NAACP. There is work to do. There is work to do. We have already secured civil unions in this state. We have already decriminalized marijuana in this state. We have already modernized our elections in this state. And the NAACP was intimately involved in all of those causes. And we will repeal the death penalty in this state if I've got anything to do with it. If I am Big Mama's granddaughter, we will do it. We will do it. We are women. Thank you so much. This was the perfect way to come home from the march.
As always, she gets us riled up. She gets us, our blood pumping. Thank you so much, Rosemary. Thank you, thank you, thank you. And actually, that is what we are about, is remembering our mothers, our grandmothers, those who came before, standing on the shoulders of those that have gone before us and remembering that rich history. That history of women that is so often forgotten and neglected. And that's why we do these storytelling events. Next, I want to introduce to you Brigadier General Dana Capozzola. She is the first woman Brigadier General here in Colorado, and for the Colorado Guard. And she is going to share some of her experiences with that for Women's Equality Day.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify, I'm not the first female general in Colorado, but I'm the first female general in the Colorado National Guard, which I guess I will be like Michelle and sit, because otherwise I'll be wandering up and down the aisle. So when I was young, it was never my dream or passion to join the military. As a little girl, that was not anything I remotely thought about. But when I was trying to get ready to go to college, my father, who had been in Vietnam, and he's now a retired Coast Guard, At that time, he's like, okay, you got to figure out how you're going to pay for college. And I was like, okay. And he said, why don't you try for ROTC? And I was like, okay. And I put in a packet for Army ROTC and Air Force ROTC. That's a Reserve Officer Training Corps. It can help you pay for college. And I actually received both. And then I had to make a decision. And I decided the Army because I knew in my heart that I was going to be a psych major. I was going to get my doctorate in social psychology and be teaching. And only the Army was going to allow me to pick my major. The Air Force wanted me to be an engineer or something like that, and I was like, okay, that's not me. So I went off to college, and they hooked me right away because I did some fun things that I've never done in my life. Went rappelling. We did this thing where we got in this metal boat on a river, and we stormed this hill. I felt like I was Rambo. I really did. I was like, oh my God. And it was a very different experience because I had never done that kind of stuff growing up. But I really liked rappelling, and I liked the people I was with. And I had always been the type of person that I'd always tried to do my best. I always had that. And my daughter, who's here, she had a teacher when she was in 3rd grade that called pride doing your personal best at all times. And so I always try to take that message whenever I'm talking because I thought that teacher was brilliant. I didn't know what it was as a young person, but it's having that personal pride that you want to do your very best at all times. And that also meant I was a very competitive person. So when they said that only a few people would be able to get what they called a regular Army commission, I was like, okay, I'll try for that. And this is kind of about like what you're saying, Michelle, about, hey, your dream and your passion. My dream had been to be a social psychologist, but, maybe it's my passion for competitiveness, I don't know what. I kind of put that aside because I decided, I wanted to try for this. And I did get it. And I was able to, with my husband Rob, who's here as well, that brought us out to Colorado. And I was on active duty, 2nd lieutenant in Colorado. And we were here for 4 years. Until we had our first son. And then at that time, I was told that I'd have to go be stationed in Korea. And a lot of people that are military, I don't know how many of you are military, I only know Renee here, so there's probably a few people that are military in the audience. A lot of people are told to do that, where they have to go to Korea or another country away from their family for a year. But we had just had our first son. He was maybe about 6 months old. And I was like, oh, no. I'll go for 2 years, because they had a thing where you could go for 2 years, what they called a company. But my advisor, who didn't know me from anyone, he was in another state. He was like, no, you have to do this. Well, for us, family always comes first, so that was not a hard decision. I resigned my active duty commission and immediately went into the reserves. And in the reserves, it was a great time. I got to do amazing things. I worked in a veterinary unit. I should back up. I was a medical service corps officer, which meant I basically studied to be able to buy the Band-Aids, the equipment, and the drugs for the doctors and nurses and medical professionals to do their job. We were the behind-the-scenes people that kind of helped run the medical. If you ever watched MASH, I was not Hot Lips, okay? She was a nurse. She was a nurse. I was more like Radar, but I mean he held it all together, right? He was really, if you watch it again, he was really in charge. He did all the paperwork. He made sure everyone was doing what they were supposed to do. That's what a medical service officer does. So I did that in the reserves, and when I was taking one of the many military schools that you're supposed to do when you're in the military. You have different advanced levels of training. I met an officer that was in the Guard, and this was a 2-year course that I was in, and he proceeded for 1 year to nag me about going into the Guard. I was like, oh, I don't know. And this is where I always say they have to be prepared for opportunities. Because you always have to be prepared for an opportunity. Then he dangled the idea. He's like, well, if you came to the Guard, there is this company, and you could be the company commander. And I was like, oh, okay, that sounds good. Because I am the oldest child, one of 3, the only girl, pretty bossy. I like being in charge, I do. My husband would probably agree to that. But so I thought, okay, I'll try. And you know, to be able to get, to be able to be successful, you sometimes have to take risks. Like MJ's mother-in-law, what an amazing risk. Michelle, your risk that you took, amazing. So I took the risk of going from the reserves into the Guard. I really didn't know it was that much of a risk until I became part of the Guard, and I realized how easily my paperwork could have gotten all screwed up, and I could have been out there all by myself, not even in the military anymore, because things could have gotten messed up. That kind of stuff does happen, but luckily it didn't, and I was able to get that command, and I just had to commit to driving all the way to Montrose 1 weekend a month. But I knew it wasn't forever, also, and I knew, it was a good thing. And from there, I've been in the Guard now since 2000, and I will say that I've had some amazing, amazing opportunities. But I was prepared for the opportunities because I got the education I needed to do, like everyone has to do, and I was tenacious and decided to try for the hard jobs. Because you can only move up if you have been successful in the hard jobs. One of those jobs, Renee was with me, and it was interesting because sometimes as you're being a leader, being in charge, you run into these situations where a soldier will really, it makes it hard because you want to do the right thing. And I'm going to use Renee as an example. There was this rule that if you were in the military and you could not have a family care plan where you could actually come and work at the time you're supposed to be there, then we're supposed to kick you out. We are. And at the same time, I was commanding this unit, and we had a commander who was very visionary, and he would say, hey, I want this to happen in 3 months. And we'd be like, oh my God, how are we going to make this happen? And we were tasked with putting together this training program for new recruits. And we didn't have enough full-time people. And suddenly I had this epiphany. I'm like, oh my gosh, Renee can't actually come and work at the times that we need her to work on a drill weekend. But maybe she'd be willing to help us, because we don't have enough full-time people, work it in her schedule during the week to be able to help us stand up this program. And it's people like Renee that have helped me be successful, because she accepted that. And through us working together, we were able to have an amazingly successful program. I think she had an amazingly successful career, although she didn't take the opportunity that I kept trying to make her take about trying to become an officer. But, we all have different paths in life. And I was very fortunate because when I got to the rank of lieutenant colonel, I knew that there was 2 jobs that were going to be coming open for me. One was the easy button of let's put Dana in charge of the medical command, and the other was the big brigade in our state, which was about 2/3, about a little over 2,300 or more soldiers. So 66 medical or 2,300, and I begged my boss and just said, would you give me the opportunity to interview for the bigger job? Because I just wanted to try. And, so that's being tenacious, right? He used to say, after he knew, I'd go into him and say, hey, General Mills, you know me, right? He goes, yeah, you're really aggressive. I said, well, I like the word assertive, but if you want to use aggressive, that's okay. But he gave me that opportunity. He was willing to give me that opportunity. And then, now, I think women, we can be our worst enemy. When the opportunity to get the education needed to become a general came my way, my first inclination was, why in the world would I do this? Because I'm never going to be a general. I'm a woman. I'm medical service. And in my civilian world, they don't care. Who cares? This isn't going to help me in any way. But I had two colonels that, I was a lieutenant colonel, they were colonels. They're like, hey, do you have this? I'm like, yes. Do you have this? Yes. Do you have this? Yes. The only thing I didn't have was my official military photo. And they said, well, we can have it ready for you at 8 o'clock in the morning. Can you be here? And I was like, okay. They're laying it out there for me. Why wouldn't I do it? So I went and I got my picture taken, and Then I got picked up for this school, had to go back to my husband and say, sorry, I lied. I know I told you I would never, never take another one of these horrible military classes that last 2 years long. But he was very supportive. And because of doing that class, then I was actually prepared for an opportunity that then came up of when they were selecting people to become general officers. And there was 2 of us. And there was 2 general jobs that were going to be open. There was the one that was in charge of everything, and then there was the job that was over in charge of another area. Just it was more of like an advisor general officer. Well, of course, we both wanted the same job. We wanted the big job. We wanted to be the commander in charge, and we both competed. He was a great officer, but the 2-star general in charge of our entire state. He selected me, and I was very, very fortunate. And now I try to, spread the message about being prepared for opportunities, because I could so easily have just taken myself out of the running, just by my own self-doubts. And I think women do that all the time. We don't give ourselves enough credit, and everyone. So I always spread this message to all men and women, especially in my command: get your military education done. Take the hard jobs. Don't be afraid. You've got to be involved. You've got to be vocal. And the other part of the message that I say, like right now since I'm in charge, we're looking for people that want to take care of all. Not just one, not just the infantry, not just the military police, not just aviation. I'm trying to promote leaders in our organization that will champion all of our soldiers, every single one of them. And by being in this position, I've had the great opportunity to be part of what we call the Joint Diversity Executive Council. And this is back at Washington, D.C. And there's members from all the states, all the different National Guard organizations. And we're trying to promote diversity. And diversity isn't just, whether you're a man or a woman, your race, your religion. It's everything. We're trying to get that message out, that the only way that we can be a better military organization is to hear everyone's voice. So that's my message, I guess. It's not as but thank you. Be prepared for opportunities.
And actually, the being prepared for opportunities has been brought up by several, just in different ways. The opportunity presented to Moody to sneak in and be able to try and type in on the same typewriter. The opportunity that Michelle had to get involved with philanthropy and in the community, and Rosemary's grandmother, the opportunity that she had, and she took it when she had it, to stop working and get involved in the community and make changes. So sometimes we are our own worst enemy, and we do need to look for those opportunities where they come from and grab the opportunity when it arises.